This is Gemara in Kiddushin, Daf Ayin Zayin Baruch Hashem. We are closing out both Meseches Kiddushin and, believe it or not, Seder Nashim, halfway through Shas. Who would ever believed we're here? I do hope to see many of you. Bell works, well, tomorrow night for when we're recording, probably tonight when you are listening. And B'siyata D'Shemaya, looking forward to celebrating an incredible milestone and being mechazek for the next 3.5, the final, second half leg of the journey. And we pick it up by in Zayin Amid Aleph, continuing to discuss the different psulim. Says the Mishnah, Bas Cholol Zachar Psula Min Akuna. And the truth is, much of today is going to revolve around the Cholol. As we'll explain, as we've already seen, I should say, that a Cholol is anytime we have a Koyin together with someone who is forbidden to the Koyin, the child gets the status of a Cholol. If it's a girl, a Chalalah. And when the woman who gets the status, that is going to be the discussion of today. So if we have a bas, a daughter, of a Cholol Zachar, of a male Cholol, the halacha is such a daughter is psula min hakahuna la'olam, forever. Why forever? What's forever? The Gemara will explain. Case number 2. Yisrael shenasa chalala. Now we have a female chalal, which could be perhaps the bas in the first part of the Mishnah. The Yisrael marries her. What is the status of their child? Bitai is ksheira likahuna. The daughter is kosher likahuna. Whereas on the flip side, if the chalal shenasa bas Yisrael, if a chalal marries a bas Yisrael, then bitai psula min akuna. Now, what is the addition of this case over the first case that said bas chalal zachar? We will see in the Gemara. Likuna. Rav Yehuda Omer bas ger zachar ki bas chalal zachar. Rav Yehuda continues discussing the halachas of a ger, which we already know are very similar to a chalal. Says Rav Yehuda, the daughter of a ger is asur to a kohen, like a daughter of a male chalal, like the first case of the Mishnah bas chalal zachar. So a bas ger zachar ki bas chalal zachar. Rav Elazar ben Yankiv Omer Yisrael shenasa giyaires bitay ksheira likahuna. A Yisrael that marries a giyaires, everything is good and dandy. The child, the daughter, can marry a kohen. The ger shenasa bas Yisrael, the flip case, he's the ger and she's a regular Yisrael. Then bitay ksheira likahuna. Aval, says Rav Elazar ben Yaakov, ger shenasa giyaires. If both of them are gerim, then bitai psula likuna. Finally, the Mishnah concludes, even until generations, ad shetayim imoy mi Yisrael. Rabbi Yosi Omer concludes the Mishnah, av ger shenasa giyires bitai ksheira likuna. So let's begin by discussing the first case of the Mishnah, which of course is this bas cholol zachar, whom we're saying is pasal likahuna le'olam. So says the Gemara, my le'olam. What does it mean he's pasal forever? Explains the Gemara. Maybe it's more comparable to mitzvah nadaimi. That what? We've already learned. Actually, we haven't learned it, excuse me. Lachar, shaloisha, dairais, they are mutter, avkan, nami lachashos, dairais. Well, we've seen it in passing. Kamash Malon, that no, the bas chol zachar is asur, lo ilam. And now we continue to the din itself of Yisrael, shenasa chalola, said the Mishnah, bitay kesher likahuna, asked the Gemara, immediately we already know this from, Rav Yochanan, mishum Rav Shimon, nemar kan, v'lo yechalel zaroi be'amav, should not profane your descendants in your nation. So we have the same word, be'amav. Says the Gemara, malahalon, zcharim v'loy nekevois, avkan, zcharim v'loy nekevois. So part A of the Gzeira Shava, and this gets slightly confusing, so let's try to hold on. Part A of the Gzeira Shava is, be'amav, that what? The din is only by Zacharim v'loi nekevos, that seemingly the halal, the din of halal is only by a Zachar. Now, of course, everyone's wondering, what do you mean? We've already seen in the Mishnah that's not true. Let's get there right now. Ask the Gemara that question. Elameata bita shel kohen gadol tishtri. The daughter of a kohen gadol should be mutter. What does that mean? It means if a kohen gadol married someone who's puzzled to him, who's that? We've seen many times almana who grusha to a kohen gadol. Then the child should be mutter, the daughter, because we're saying that the whole din of chol is a din in a zachar, but we know that's not true. So responds the Gemara, miksiv b'noi, zaroi ksiv, and zaroi doesn't limit. But of course the kasha is lo yichal zaroi ba'amav. So says Gemara, okay, so on one hand we're limiting it to only zachar. On the other hand, we're including second generation daughters. Why? Because zaroi. So says the Gemara Bas Benot history. So then, excuse me. On the other hand, we're including daughters. Says Gemara Bas Benot history. Answers the Gemara, no. Ksiv leichal zaroi. Makish zaroi loy. That what? Bahu bita psula b'noi bita psula. So Bas bita tister in King Zir Shava my mahanile. So we have a very unique balance. That's really the difficulty over here, figuring out how to make this balance. On one hand, we have Gzeir Shava. And the Gzeir Shava says it's only Ba'amav, it's only by din of a Zachar. On the other hand, we have that we're including even daughters. So how do we say both of them? So says the Gemara, that's the balance between the din of the Bita Shal Kohen Gadol versus the regular din of Chalal. That in general we'll call it, it's a din by Zacharim, but for the Gzeir Shava we're learning that it's going to be ad infinitum, but then on the other hand, it's only going to be to the Zacharim, and therefore the Bas Bita won't be included. Continues the Gemara, Chalal Shenasa Bas Yisrael Bita Psula. If a Chalal marries a Bas Yisrael, the daughter is puzzle. Says the Gemara, Hatanile Reisha, but we already learned this in the Reisha, Bas Chal Zachar Psulam and Akuna Le'oilam. So it's very repetitive. Answers the Gemara, Aidi Detani Reisha Yisrael Shenasa Chalala. It's classical Mishnah being parallel. Aidi Detani Reisha Yisrael Shenasa Chalala Tanami Sevi Chalal Shenasa Bas Yisrael. So we're just repeating it to balance the first half of the Mishnah. Continues the Gemara, okay. But now, who is the Tana of the Mishnah? Seemingly says the Gemara, Mas Nisan Deloy Karav Destoi Ben Yehuda. We're about 15 lines into the wide lines. First one line is Karebi. Says the Gemara, our Mishnah does not conform to the opinion of Rav Destoi Rav Yehuda. Why did Tanya? Rav Destoi Ben Yehuda Omer Kishein Shevnei Yisrael Mikva Tahira Lechalalois Kach Benois Yisrael Mikva Tahira Lechalalim. Rav Destoi Rav Yehuda learned that a Benois Yisrael or a mikvah tahira. What does that mean? That means if a Bas Yisrael is with a chalal, the child will be kosher likahuna. Says the Gemara, where does Rav Destoi Rav Yehuda get this din from? My time to Rav Destoi Rav Yehuda Amar Krali Chalal Zara Ba'amav Ba'am Echad Hu Dimeichal B'Shnei Amimim Einoi Meichal. For here we learn out that it's only Ba'am Echad. That the only time, says Rav Destoi Rav Yehuda, that there's a din of a chalal is ba'am echad. Am over here meaning one type. A chalal with a chalalah. Then the child is aser. However, b'shnei amimin, then einoi michal. Continues the Gemara. What about the Mishnah and everything we've been discussing has been dealing with the status of the child. What about the woman? Does she get the same din? This teaches us the din of the child. From where do we know that when a kohen is together with a woman, again a kohen with a gerusha, he's not allowed to be with a zayna, v'chulu. Where do we know that she gets the same din as the child, that she is considered a chalala. Says the Gemara, Amir Kal V'Chaimer, a classical Kal V'Chaimer. Ma zaroi shleyavar aveira mitchalel. The child, did the kid do anything wrong? No! And yet, the kid gets a din of a chalal. She, shavar aveira in the din shem is chaleles. Says the Gemara, beautiful. But 1 second, I can ask you a simple kasha. What about the husband? Shavar aveira, this kain didn't have aveira, and yet, the halacha is ve'inay mitchalel. The husband doesn't get the din of a chalal, so therefore maybe she should not either. Says Gemara, no, malush kinin mischal b'chol makayim. He does not become a chalal in any situation, meaning even if when he's with a lower level lisurim, a zayna, an evet, taimer bihi shemischaleles b'chol makayim, where she does become a chalala. So similarly in this case. Continues the Gemara after deflecting and answering where it comes from. Continues the Gemara with an interesting line. But if you're going to have a question, I'll tell you another reason. Omar kro shein the Torah lechalal zaroi lo yichulal zeh kosher v'nis chalal. This one that was kosher becomes a chalal, and that's what teaches us that the woman gets the din of a chalal herself. Says the Gemara, I don't understand. 20 lines to the bottom, first word of the line is Mai. What's this additional drasha teaching that she's a halal? What's the question? So explains the Gemara, if you're going to say, I could ask, if the child, it's true, the kid did nothing wrong, but the creation of the child was via sin. So I understand. Lo yichulal. Zeshe yakashav in itchalel. But what about she? She didn't do anything wrong. Meaning she did something wrong, but she was a kosher. So maybe she would not get the same din. And that's the reason why we need this second pasuk. Continues the Gemara, Tanu, Rabbanan, Izehi chalala. When does a girl get the status of a chalala? Kol shanala min apsulim. A girl who's born from a psul, born between man and woman that were aser. Says the Gemara, my psulim. Ilem psulim loy. If it's a case where it's possible to him, harimachzer grushasai. Case where someone remarries his own grusha after marrying someone in between, which the halacha is the psula loy, it's possible. Ubanik sheirim, but yet the child is a kosher. And from there we learn he ta'eva. So says the Gemara, not every case of psulim creates an issue. What's a chalala? Kol shenolda min psul kahuna. It doesn't mean any psul. It means davka psul kahuna. Nolda in loy nolda loy. Says the Gemara, it sounds like it's only a din in nolda if there's a child. What do you mean? Ari almano grusha zayna delon nolda kavi chalala. When such a woman is together with a kayin, they themselves, via the act of tashmish, get the din of a chalala, even without a child. So Amar Rabbachi Kamar, Ezu chalala muzkeresh lo yahaya lo shas hakoisher. What is the din of a chalala that never had a moment that was kosher? Klal? Kol shenolda min absulim kuna. My muzkeres. Says the Gemara, what do you mean? What do you mean that it was never Ezu chalala muzkeres? It was mentioned. Amar Rav Yitzchak bar Avin Achi Kamar. Ezehi chalala sheikaro midivrei Torah. Vein strichel nefaresh midivrei Torah. Doesn't need an explanation. Kol shenolda mim psulim kuna. And that really ends part A of today's shir, which is all the dinim of echol. Continues the Gemara. Tanu Rabbanan, 6 lines from the bottom. First line is shenolda. Tanu Rabbanan abraisa. Almana, almana, almana. If a kohen gadol is together with an almana, an almana, an almana, now what exactly does that mean? Stay tuned. The moment the Gemara is going to explain. It's one of here. If he's together with grusha, if he's with almana, grusha, v'chalala, zayna. Bizmat shein kiseder, when they're in order. Okay. Zinsav in his chalav in its garshav in his armla in a chayv alachas. Okay, So an interesting brisa. We have a kohen that's being over multiple aveiros. In certain scenarios, it's considered one aveira. Other times, it's considered separate aveiros. And of course, the question is, what is going on over here? So says the Gemara, Omar Mar, 3 lines from the bottom, Ayin Zayin Amid Aleph. And the truth is, the first half of the shir was the difficult part. Hopefully, everyone can take a deep breath. The second half is a little bit easier, concepts that we have seen. Almana, inochayev ala achas. Says the Gemara, Hayal da almana echidami. What's the case of almana? Ilay ma'almana shabal almonas, Ruvain ma'almonas, Shimon ma'almonas, Levi. If you're going to tell me the classical case that we have a Kohen Gadol. Kohen Gadol is also to an almana, a widow. So this Kohen Gadol went and he was together with the Ruvain's almana, Shimon's almana, Levi's almana, meaning 3 different widows. Says the Gemara, Ma'ina chayev ala achas. Why in the world would this Kohen Gadol be obligated only once? Harei gufa muchlakim, they're totally different people, as we turn over to Ayin Zayin Amud Beis, and therefore each one should carry a separate Isser. Harei shemus muchlakim, they're different names. Ella, says the Gemara, okay, let me tell you what the case over here is. Ella, says the Gemara, the case is al almana achas shalosh biyos. The case is that the Kohen Gadol was together with one almana 3 times. Says the Gemara, okay, and you're the chayav once. Says the Gemara, hey chidami, still, what's the case? If there was no hasra, pshita. We know that the only time they're separate isurim is if one has hasra, if one is warned about what's going on. And really, it's a little bit of our introduction to Seder Nezikin, as we're going to get to Marcus B'siyata D'Shemaya. Ela d'asru be'al kol chad v'chad, separate asur, separate warning on each act of intercourse together with this almana. So why are you chayiv only once? V'atanan, we already learned to Mishnah in Nazir. Nazir shaysei ayin kol hayom kuloi. The Nazir is drinking wine the whole day. Einay chayiv elachas amru loi. But if they told him al tishti v'ushaisa, told him don't drink, and he continues to drink, chayiv kol achas v'achas. So what is this case of the Kohen Gadol with the almana? That there's only one obligation in the chayiv alachas, explains the Gemara, lo yisricha sheba almanas Ruvain, she'oisa almanas Shimon, she'oisa almanas Levi. The case is, and I apologize, I just realized that the whole day I've been blocking Rashi. I'm on the wrong side of the page. Apologies. Let's get that right. Okay. Says the Gemara, you know what the case is? The case is that this Kohen Gadol is together with the almana of Ruvain, who is also the almana of Shimon, who is also the almana of Levi. This woman was married to 3 different people and widowed 3 times. So I would think maybe they're separate people, as she had 3 different husbands, and therefore she's an almana 3 different times. Says the Gemara, no, that the only time you can have separate Yisurin if it's separate Gufim, separate people. Over here it's one person, and therefore this Kohen Gadol is only chayiv one time for the one act of intercourse that he had with his one almana, who happens to be the almana of 3 different people. Continues the Gemara with the next part of the Brisa, almana gusha v'chalala zayna. We said in the the Brisa, we have an almana, gusha, and a chalal zayna. Hi Tana Maikasavar. What is going on with this Tana, says the Gemara. If the Tana holds in is a chalal iser, one iser does not fall on another iser. You don't double up isurin. So what's the difference of the order of how they became an almana gusha v'chalal zayna? It should be the same thing. So Amar Rava, you know what the Tana holds? Tana really holds it's a chalal iser. Tana is chalal iser lastly. Does not hold of it's a chalal iser. Iser ma'isef islay, but he holds of one Isser adding on to another Isser. Explains the Gemara how this makes sense. Almana Yisur Kohen Gadol. So again, the klal, the rule of Isser Ma'isif is that there has to be an additional level of Isser, more severity, more something each time. So says the Gemara, Almana Yisur Kohen Gadol, and Almana is also to Kohen Gadol, but Charlie Kohen had Haviyullah. That's what she was first. Grusha, but then when she became a grusha, she got divorced. Now she's also even to a regular kohen. Now if the kohen gadol's with this woman, this is considered to be a second isser. V'dayin shayir lemechel v'truma. She's still allowed to eat truma. Havil lechalala. Then she becomes a chalala. She says the Gemara. She's together with an eved. Let's say. Now she is also to eat truma. Therefore, Isser Maisev Itaisev Isur Legavi Kohen Gadol. There's an extra Isser with regard to Kohen Gadol as well, and that's going to be the case of the Brisa. Ask the Gemara Lazaina my Isser Maisev Isla. If she is then over in Zenos, what additional Isser is there? Amar Rav Chana, 2 lines from the wide lines. Bar Ketina. Hayel v'shem zinos poisel b'Yisrael. There's a shame zinos which makes her apostle even to a regular Yisrael, and that's the extra Isser. We continue on the last narrow line. Continuing discussing Isurim, adding on to Isurim. Tana kamed Rav Sheshes, a brisa that was learned in front of Rav Sheshes. Kol shehu b'yikach, harehu b'lo yikach. Any person, anyone that is included in yikach, that he has to take a besula referring to a kohen gadol, harehu b'lo yikach, is also included in the next part of the pasuk of almana gusha v'chalal zayna lo yikach. Therefore, if one was mutter to a kohen gadol when she was a bisula, she never had relations, but then became a grusha, a chalala, a zayna, etc., then she's also to the kohen gadol. Kol she'enoi b'yikach, anyone who is never involved in the original allowance to the kohen gadol, enoi b'lo yikach, is now not included in the additional isser to marry the kohen gadol. Parat le kohen gadol shaba al achoisai almana. The only case the exclusion of kohen gadol together with his own sister was an almana, even though she originally was not in lo yikach, she was never allowed, not in ki yikach, excuse me, she was never allowed to marry him. She still gets the extra isser of almana. Amar lei, Rav Sheshes responds to Amar L'Chamani, who says is Rav Shimon he. That one Isser does not add on the ten Rav Shimon. Potter from the Vela. Why? Because you're over for eating Yom Kippur. Because if the sheet of Rabbanan Amri is a Chalal Isser. So then this, well, you just taught me Tana Kamed Rav Sheshes about only one that's included in Ki Yikach could be included in Lo Yikach has to be the sheet of Rav Shimon. Explains the Gemara and not the Rabbanan. I can tell you it's even the Rabbanan. Why? Ki kama Rabbanan. When do they say their din is chal iser? Honey, mili on the 5th wide line, iser chomer al iser kal. It's only when it's a more chomer to get iser. Aval iser kal, iser chomer, loy chayil. Therefore says the Gemara, this price that was taught in front of Rav Sheshes could be both the Chachamim as well as Rav Shimon. Ikdi Amri, a second lashon. I think with this we're going to conclude. Ikdi Amri, Hamani Rabbanan Damri is a Chalal Iser. V'chi Amri Rabbanan, when the Rabbanan say the din is Chalal Iser, Ani Mili Iser Chamal Iser Kal. Aval Iser Kal Iser Chamer Loy Chayil. Di Rav Shimon, because it's only a sheet of Rav Shimon Hashte is a Chamal Iser Kal Loy Chayil. Rav Shimon holds that Iser Chamer Iser Kal does not apply. Iser Kal Iser Chamer Mi Boy. Explains the Gemara, no, it could even be Rav Shimon. Ma'u the time is like Kuna shiny, Kamash Malan. That no, it's not shiny. Therefore, this could be either the opinion of Rav Shimon or the opinion of the Chachamim. We'll stop over here. We'll continue with Rav Papa and Abai in the next year, hoping to see as many people as possible tomorrow or tonight at Bellworks B'siyata Dishmaya.